There are a ton of robot vacuum systems on the market, and I've talked about a bunch of them here. It seems like they come out a new one every single day, but I talk about them because they are products I use all the time. It has changed how I clean my home. No longer do I have to pull out the vacuum because it's been dusty for a week and it just is accumulating. Now I wake up and my house feels clean, and I absolutely love that. But picking which one to actually buy, well, that can be a big pain point. There's just so many options, it's hard to know which way to go. Now, I love a lot of these different options. Most of them perform pretty well to begin with. And one of my favorites is the Narwal Freo X Ultra. Narwal was one of the first to really pioneer having a mop in your robot vacuum alongside that vacuuming system. So you kind of get the 2-in-1. They were one of the first to really push that hard. So I've really enjoyed what they are doing. But YEEDI reached out and wanted to sponsor a video because they sent over their M12 Ultra Plus, and while they think it's better than what Narwal has to offer, and in a lot of ways I think that is true, but I'm just gonna talk about what both have to offer, and well, you can decide for yourself. Like I said, the big push for Narwal has been that mopping system. This is their pride and joy. It is what I think they pioneered in the market. But very quickly, they started to have a lot of competition. And if you look at both of these robots on the bottom, the mop system at first glance looks very, very similar. They're both using dual mop heads that spin. They can both put pressure down. So at first glance, it seems like, not much of a difference here. But where there is a big difference is how they get the most effective clean. Really, the problem here that they're trying to solve is how do you get this circular vacuum into a corner or into an edge? How does that happen? And they're using two different philosophies here. What Narwal is doing is something they call edge swing. Basically, the robot will go up to an edge or a corner and it will tilt the vacuum so that the mop head will get as close to the edge as possible. Now, this works. It is certainly a solution, but it does take longer. It is not, I think, as effective. It does work, clearly, but it does take a bit longer because it has to, inch forward, turn, inch forward, turn. It's a method that I think for what the tech and smarts that are built in makes sense, but YEEDI has a different idea here. The M12 Ultra Plus is using what they call true edge technology. And this, instead of tilting the whole robot, it just extends the mop head out. And this means it can more effectively get into those corners or on those edges. And what I think the big benefit here is that it can keep it extended. It doesn't have to inch forward and then extend it. It can just keep it out and run along the entire edge of a wall, which just makes the cleaning a little faster and more effective. And this also helps for when getting around table legs or chair legs because it can, reach out closer to that area and just, again, get a more effective clean. And that's why it's kind of interesting at first glance. They look very similar, but they are taking very different approaches. Now, aside from that, the rest of the mopping system is very similar. They both have clean and dirty water tanks. They both will, fill up with clean water, go out and mop, come back, empty the dirty water, and refill and continue that process as much as needed. And then once the cleaning session is done, they are both able to come back and, clean the mop and dry them so that they are ready for the next session. YEEDI does use hot water mop washing so it can clean those mop heads easier in the base station. Now, the difference doesn't stop there. We also see it when it comes to the vacuum side as well. The biggest, I think, change or difference that you see between these is just the suction power. The Narwal has 8,200 pascals of suction, whereas the YEEDI has 11,800. And now that might not seem like maybe a huge jump. It does sound like a huge jump to me, but maybe it doesn't, on paper seem that big. But what this means is you just can get a much more effective clean, especially if you're cleaning carpet. If you're looking at hardwood floors or tile, both of these vacuums are going to do just fine. But when you get to some of those harder to vacuum areas like a carpet, you really want the most suction possible. And that means it's going to be able to vacuum up dust, hair, bigger debris like, dog food or M&Ms, anything like that. And it is a difference that will noticeably give you a better clean. But another area with the vacuum system is the roller brush. There's very different philosophies here as well, but they're both trying to solve the same issue. And that is, how do you not get this brush to tangle? They're spinning super fast, and eventually, even on regular, handheld vacuums or upright vacuums, the thing that always goes first is the brush, because it's spinning and eventually it's going to get tangled with something. So it is the one pain area that is just hard to deal with. And both of these are trying to deal with tangled hair in different ways. The way the Narwal does it is by using a brush that is only attached on one side, and it is also tilted 50 degrees. And basically what this means is that when hair gets sucked up and wrapped around it, it is able to then get pulled closer to the vacuum intake. And because it's not attached on that side, instead of getting tangled, it just falls right off and goes into the dustbin. But what YEEDI has is what they call zero tangle technology. And basically what this does is use a comb that is able to comb out any hair. And as that happens, it is then sucked into the vacuum container. But what YEEDI claims is that because of this design, it's able to stay closer to the floor, which will then be able to sweep easier and get more of that debris. Whereas because of that 50-degree tilt on the Narwal, that is getting a less effective clean. Now, I will say both of these are able to clean the majority of what you are going to have in your home, but with the more suction and the different brush design, there is a noticeable difference, especially, like I said, when it comes to carpet. Now, another area that is very different, and the philosophies are different between both of these companies, is with the dustbin. One of the best things here is that you don't have to change the dustbin for months at a time, because once it's done vacuuming, it'll go back to the base station, and typically it would suction back into a bigger dustbin that is in the base station. That's what YEEDI does, because there is a 3-liter dustbin built into the base station, so you can go up to 90 days without needing to change that, which is a great feature. And this is the kind of the typical way to go about it. Narwal does have an interesting take on this, and instead of having a bigger base station that has both capacity for the water and the dustbin, they use the dustbin inside of the robot. This has a 1-liter dustbin, which is built in, and this should last around 7 weeks before you have to change it, but they use what they call dust compression technology. And the idea here is that when you're vacuuming up all this debris, most of what you're actually, vacuuming up is air. So if you're able to get the air out between all of your debris, you're going to be able to compact it and have that be smaller. So that's exactly what they do. They compress the debris that's in the dustbin, and that means it can continuously go out and do it again and again for, again, up to 7 weeks. And this means that you don't need that dustbin in the base station, and you just get I think a little bit more sleek look on the base station itself, because you only need to worry about the water there. Like I said, both very different techniques, but they both work in their own ways. And of course, these both have their different mapping technologies. So they both use LiDAR to map the world around it. So you can set different zones, different rooms, tell it where to go, where not to go. It can detect different objects like tables or carpets or chairs. So it knows the world around it. So yeah, when looking at both of these products on paper or just at a glance, they both look very similar. I mean, the design is very similar, the functions are very similar, but when you get down to the details, you can see why YEEDI is doing things a bit better, and at least a bit differently, that I think yield in better results. Both of these are great, but if you're in the market for one, YEEDI might be the way to go. So I'll leave links down below for everything if you want to learn more about these and pick one up for yourself. Also, YEEDI is having a Black Friday sale. It's the lowest prices ever. But yeah, robot vacuums are quickly getting better. But when you put them next to each other, that's when you really see the differences.